You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Regarding Sitchin, there are some that believe that he had misinterpreted much of his information or even possibly been controlled in some aspect by greater forces, and that the information that he portrayed may have not been completely accurate. There may have been some mistranslations, whether it was on purpose or accidental. What are your thoughts on that?
The people that accuse him of doing mistranslations are always religious skeptics that are also in a handful of these people. I'm not even going to mention their names, but make a record and a name of themselves, publishing books simply to just make note of what you said. He mistranslated something and everything is wrong. Billy Meyer had photos of faked UFOs in his collection of photos. Does that mean that it was fake? No, right? So there's a lot of things that people aren't accounting for, unfortunately, that yes, Zecharia Sitchin may have embellished connective tissue in saying this piece goes all the way through. I'll give you an example of one. Throughout the lexicon of Sumerian artifacts, we have the reference of 7 dots in the sky. Modern academia says this is the 7 sisters of Pleiades. Sitchin said, no, this is the representation of Earth, 7 dots, the sacred number 7, 7 days in a week, Earth. That point has a lot of contention. Even now, as a researcher supporting Sitchin's background and what he went through bringing this information out, I'm kind of at a pass too, where there's points like that, yeah, the 7 sisters of Pleiades are actually referenced from many other cultures out from side of Sumer as perhaps the home of their origins, just like the Orion or Sirius A and B. So did he take embellishment or not, align with modern academics on certain translations like that one? Yeah, but the overall terminology and themes, they're still there, right? So here's what I'd say to anyone trying to smack that piece of factoid around. If you look at the evidence of Eric von Daniken visually showing you across the globe that there are artifacts visually showing interaction or some type of knowledge that they saw things and they did their best to represent technology they didn't understand. It's littered throughout our history. Sitchin took the linguistic approach of looking at the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, the Sumerian and Akkadian versions. I don't see a lot of people being able to step up to that except for, again, a couple of religious people who are trying to back the Bible's version. So when you look at these tales of information, whether you believe it or not, it's there and it exists. And the linguistic view of our past is much more colored through people like Zecharia Sitchin rather than modern academics and current religious views that are based in Christianity. And again, Eric von Daniken's touting going around the world. When you take the visual and the linguistic and combine them together, I again say, you know what? You guys make up your own mind. But that's why we have shows like Ancient Aliens now in their 22nd season, and even reruns still get over 1 million views per show.
Now, I want to get to the possibilities. What are your thoughts on the possibility that we had an advanced global civilization, that across the planet at one time we had these advanced builders that had these similar advanced megalithic construction methods, that build the same types of structures, that had the same spiritual practices, followed the same star alignments, and had these same buildings across the globe. There's evidence showing that even in the Americas, that these builders were building structures sort of like the mounds, which could have been precursors to things like the Great Pyramids. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. It's funny, I wrote a book called Knowledge Apocalypse 12 years ago and just rewrote it for an updated edition. And then as soon as I was doing that, Knowledge Apocalypse, a Netflix special came out called Ancient Apocalypse by Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
And it covers obviously a lot of the things that you're hinting on here. And that was a great 8-hour special to kind of expose the world to the litany of things that we go through as researchers that are blockers, and also the lengths we go to try to make connective tissue, right? So to answer your question, I would say 2 things. One, referring to Ancient Apocalypse, that show gives a great insight where modern academia has kind of put their foot in the ground and drawn a line to say, well, no one's going to talk about aliens. We're not okay with condoning any of that type of research. So not even aliens, right? So Graham Hancock comes along and is looking at the Serpent Mound and is asking for film rights to take the drone over and look at it and such. And they're like, yeah, you know what? We don't align with your theories and ideas. We're not going to grant you access. Bad idea. Who are you to be able to say who and who can't access our heritage and information? So that was publicly exposed to kind of show as an example. Here as researchers, we face a lot of challenges just being able to access the data, let alone collate it and define new theories. So I think that show does a great job of exposing that part. The other part that it shows, which you mentioned, is that all throughout North America, the idea that there is a lost race, there have been giants found on many different states going through the US, many different Native American cultures that reference multiple burial sites of women over 7 feet tall, men even taller, that are found in these burial sites, and they're documented again as archaeological sites all over United States. And it really raises a question around, well, who were these people and where do they come from? And so again, I think it's part of that larger question, Christopher, is as we charge back further in history, sites like Göbekli Tepe, Bata Valley in Indonesia, there's a bunch of them all around the world that we continue to look at and say, well, how old are these sites? And it turns out that pretty much every culture, when you question the locals, they're like, yeah, we have these stories that right after the flood, these great teachers appear. And they taught us great knowledge of architecture and mathematics and astronomy, everything that we were hinting on earlier about the Anunnaki. So I don't know the answer. The Anunnaki seem to be a great global candidate. We do know that there were other continents like Atlantis and such that most likely, again, the further back you go, there is the ability for the continents to have been connected, Pangea, and we all kind of moved into where they are now. And when you go back really far and looking at some of these evidence like Charles Hapgood map or the Perry Reese map or various other reference, Phineas map, you can see that the continents were connected at one point and literally documented as people were circumnavigating the globe. And they have maps accurately showing the land underneath the ice on the poles. Like, how do you do that? Unless someone's, again, having the ability to be above the air and see it and have the technology to do ground penetrating through the ice and see the landmass. So a lot of variables there that we have to account for, to look for who are these people, where did they come from? But I think it's a really important thing that we continue to use technology, LiDAR and ground penetrating radar, artificial intelligence. Instead of me manually looking through archives, I can use an AI model to say, look for these 20,000 things that might pique my interest. Go look now through these 14 million images and let me know in 2 days if you found anything.
Yeah.
So, there's just new tools, I think, that are going to introduce us that when things do happen, before we didn't have cell phones and things, we do now. But when we send like people to Mars, in the near future, I wonder what that'll be like as far as what they see and record and send back. If someone like lifts up a skull and they're like, it's us, game over.
Speaking of technology, you were just talking about some of the technology that we could use to find out more about our ancient past. How advanced do you think our ancient ancestors were as far as the technologies they were using, especially for building purposes? We still have yet to understand how the structures like the Great Pyramids were built, lots of the structures in Peru and South America, and the similarities that are among these are incredible.
So the technology still kind of eludes us as to what allowed them to build these megalithic structures and cut stones such as granite and diorite and create these megalithic stones. But we do see kind of two different pieces of this being repeatedly used. One is a very high heat. Some type of vitrification is left over all the surfaces in Machu Picchu, Pumapuku, Teotihuacan, Sacsayhuaman. We see that these stones have been perfectly fit together without mortar.